listening to Smashing the Party. This is your host, Nate Bomberger.
Welcome to Smashing the Party. My name's Nate. You know the deal. I'm your host. I'm having a little bit of configuration issues here, so let me just see if I can pop this other one up. I'm missing somebody. Hold on, I'm missing somebody. Sorry, guys. There we go. I think I got it. Oh, my Chrome went out. Give me a second, guys. I think I lost my Safari. I got to make sure I'm casting everything. Listen, tonight's episode is going to be, I titled it Racist, Liars, and Hypocrites. And the reason I did that, let me just see if I can get my other folks online, because right now I'm online on Smashing the Party, and I'm not online on my main account. So let me just get that fired up for you real quick. Hang in there. Look, we had a little technical difficulties. I got here a little bit late. I'm going to add the stream to my main one. And we're going to talk about the state of the world. I'm thinking I'm going to do state of the world on Thursdays, because that way I can wrap the week and kind of talk about things. It gives me something to, makes it a little easier on me as well, coming up with new content, because I try to come up with new ideas like every day, and it's tough, but you know me. I'm going to spell hypocrite wrong too, aren't I? Damn it. Hold on a second. I'm not a bad speller, but I'm not the best sometimes, apparently. I learned late in life. All right, so we'll get these guys going. Sorry if you're following me on Nathaniel Bomberger on Instagram. You're gonna see me in just a second. I promise. If it lets me. All right, here we go. All right, listen, sorry about that. So why did I title it Racist, Liars, and Hypocrites? Well, I mean, it's kind of obvious. I know it's a little racy, but I needed to put a punch in there because there's a lot of shit going on, and it's worth talking about. If you listened to last night's show, which I'm going to be honest with you, I enjoyed doing last night's show, and I watched and I thought I did well. The sound was a little fucked up. The reason I'm patting myself on the back is because I wanted to lay a foundation to talk about other shit. And part of what happens in politics is this divide, this polarization. And so I wanted to talk about why it happens. Everyone's talking about, oh, you know, everyone's excited. The meme generation on both sides is cranking, you know, and it's not a bad thing for the Democrats. Finally, they're catching up with the meme factory that the Republicans have been cranking out. And unfortunately, that's the way information's transferred. And people are going to become more and more acclimated to that style of political back and forth. It's not fun if you're really trying to pay attention to other things. Trust me. And I'll get into the hellscape that is Facebook, and we'll talk about that. But the truth is that, and if somebody notices I don't have sound, ping me. I don't care. I know there's a bunch of people that ping me when I don't have sound. I have technical difficulties. I literally rolled in here 10 minutes ago, and I ran into somebody I used to work with at a former employer. And so I was chit-chatting. You know, I'm not the best small talker, but, you know, we had a good connection, I feel like. So we were just jabber-jawing, and I ran out of time. Excuses aside, my team was able to put together a decent show today. But the framework for what I talked about yesterday is the backdrop for a lot of things that we're fucking dealing with here, the polarization. And when it comes down to brass tacks, we're all in the same boat. We all got that Maslow's hierarchy needs. I say this shit all the time. You're probably bored of it, but the truth is we have way more in common. I have way more in common with an Indian person or an Asian person than I do with, you know, any other creature on this planet. And I know I say that to kind of push the point that we're all humans, and truthfully, we need the same things. We need to eat, we need touched, we need love, we need affection, we want to feel a part of something. And then you've got those baseline things that kind of keep us alive, oxygen. You know, we're on this shared globe spinning around, and so there's no pull yourself up by the bootstraps when it comes to climate change. It's an us thing. It's not a, oh, those guys are us guys. And that's one of the problems that politics has been causing, is that these real fucking problems don't get any solutions because people are like, well, that idea came from the Democrats, and that idea came from Republicans. And when you look to see if, what Trump's trial is looking like, you go to see whether the judge was appointed by a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, the fact that we have that much difference in our judicial system, depending on the political who appointed them, is mind-blowing. And when people say, oh, the justice system, it's not perfect, but the wheels of justice turn slowly, it's absolutely horrible. And I don't think it's the best designed system. If I was going to engineer a system, I certainly wouldn't create one that was like that had the ability for people to say, oh, your political leaning's this way, you have to do, I find favor in you. To me, that's weird, because now you actually are slanting the judicial system one way or the other. And in my opinion, there's the core difference between liberals and conservatives is fairness and justice for the liberal side, and sanctity and religion and authority and rules on the right. And that's just the way it is. That's how, if you break down why people are in these parties and why they have, and again, if you listen to yesterday's show, it comes from their cognitive bias, and it comes from cultural reasons and maybe religious reasons, and then their politics kind of blossom from there. And so you have this two segments, way more of a spectrum, but in America, we're bicameral. It means two sides in the Congress. And so we have this polarization where you pick one or the other. And then you got the crazy people that are picking third party. And basically, I call those the Pontius Pilates, because your vote's not going to count. Sure, there's a movement. How are we going to get the third party? Ross Perot did it, but come on. There's no independent candidate. JFK was not Ross Perot. At least Ross Perot had some good ideas and was at least knowledgeable, and certainly wasn't taking bear carcasses out of his car and dropping them off in Central Park for a prank or whatever the fuck JFK did. So JFK was not an independent. I know he's a muckraker right now. He's trying to fuck up the ballots. But that aside, this polarization that we have it's flourishing right now. And I know that being somebody who's a talking head, a little tiny mini talking head on the internet, I know I'm not necessarily reducing the amount of churn that people have. And I know certainly people scroll right past this. I know nobody wants to fucking subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I'm going to force y'all to eventually to listen to me there. But all jokes aside, we're in this climate where it's very difficult to get your ideas across without them being vetted or shut down. And one of the problems with memes is they can shut your argument down pretty quick with a picture and words. And there's not much you can respond to because there's no context. And so it just keeps on proliferating and getting worse. And I tried to lay a baseline foundation for why we are like this. Why is we all need food, we all need water, we all need, air. We all need to have a healthy climate for us to live in. We can't be freezing. We can't be too hot. And these are things that no matter what your political affiliation is, we're in it together. So it's really, really, really fucked up when you have real problems and people are looking at it as a polarization issue. It used to be, believe it or not, foreign policy wasn't something that was on the table to be discussed. And now we've got Donald Trump talking about people calling him and so forth and so on. We'll get into that. I wanted to queue up some films, but you can follow me on social media and see that I posted what I'm going to talk about tonight in my stories. And so because my team wasn't well prepared tonight, we're not going to be able to show those in real time. But if you're listening or if you're watching, certainly go to the social media, go to Instagram. I'm not telling you to go to Facebook, but go to Instagram. And I actually put a bunch of videos that I think are relevant to the larger topic. Now, I said racist, liars, and hypocrites. And, people get all uptight when I talk about Donald Trump being a racist. I will say there's friends of mine that I'm not connected to on social media anymore because they made the argument that bigot, racist, what's the difference? One's less than the other, suggesting that being a bigot is better than being a racist. And to me, when you look at Donald Trump, that's not bigotry. There's racism. There's a history of racism. I mean, you got the Central Park Five. You've got him being called out by the courts because he wouldn't rent to black people. The other day, he said something to the effect of Byron Scott, I think his name is Byron Scott. He's one of the smart ones. Not all of them are smart, but he's one of the smart ones. And we know what that dog whistle sounds like. We've heard that dog whistle before. And so I'm not going to sit here and argue whether or not Donald Trump's racist. We're going to assume that it's a subjective thing apparently to some folks. And as a black person, I wouldn't know the difference is what I was told. So, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say Donald Trump is a racist. And we're going to actually back it up with some more information today. So we're going to talk about some of the crazy shit that's going on this week. It's been a crazy, wild, wacky week. You know that. I mean, we're talking about cats, dogs being eaten by immigrants. Another racist trope. People think that Donald Trump's trying to protect you when what they're doing is selling fear. Adam Kinzinger got up and said this was the party agenda. We wanted to sell fear. I wasn't up for it. They had a discussion within the Republican Party on how to gin up their base, and they chose to go with fear. He said that. He's like, I wasn't really comfortable with it, but I went along with it anyway. And he kind of, puts his head down. But he also made the statement that he's really impressed with the Democratic Party, and he loves the fact that we kind of rely on facts and truth. And so this is a gentleman who is a representative in Congress. He was one of the folks that voted for the impeachment against Donald Trump in the January 6th thing. So, of course, when you start to go against Donald Trump in the GOP, since the GOP is the party of Donald Trump, it means you're no longer really a member. You can talk to Liz Cheney, and people often on the other side will say, well, they're just mad. No, there's a reason. Perhaps they're principled. Perhaps they have something that a lot of folks in Congress don't have, and that's courage. And again, I'm going to reference a callback yesterday. Part of what I believe Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, I would argue that they are very open-minded in that they've had this ideology, they've had this party, they went along with it, but they had enough and they had the courage to go away. And part of that's because they allowed new information to process. They weren't anchored to their fucking beliefs, so they weren't anchored to their political party. They chose country over party and they moved on. I felt yesterday was a good kind of baseline to help people understand, my neighbor's a Republican. We live in the same neighborhood. We have similar jobs, but yet we have this huge divide. And, maybe they're a Muslim, maybe they're a Christian, maybe they're a Hindu, maybe they're both Christians, and you still have a divide. By the way, Christianity isn't owned by the Republican Party. They've tried to own Christianity. They've tried to own patriotism. Again, us versus them kind of thing. These are agenda agendas that the party comes up with to gin up their base, or a narrative that allows them to rake in the cash. Okay, so when you hear something like that, you immediately believe, you have to kind of go back and look at, when did that start? When did the GOP decide to, first of all, embrace Donald Trump, who has a history of racism? It's documented. The courts documented it. And then not only that, but then take fear as the way to motivate their base. And right now they're doing a fantastic job of spreading complete bullshit against Haitian immigrants, claiming that those folks are stealing people's pets. There's an article of one person who had some mental issues who did something with a cat, and now they've taken that, she's a person of color, and they've taken that person and reverberated it through their bubble. And now this is what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are saying, and other Republicans. They're saying, hey, it's not true. And then they'll send me a YouTube video of the same bullshit. And if you go down that rabbit hole of sources, it's coming from a few folks that are right-wing rags that have absolutely no basis in truth. But when it gets repeated, and especially in today's climate, if 15 publications push something, then somebody can cite it, and then you have a reference, and it just becomes permanent part of their narrative, or their mimicry, or their talking points that they use to refute anything else. Let's just go through it. So there was a debate on Tuesday. I told you I'd tell this State of the World. I already talked about the racist. The liar is kind of threaded throughout this. The liars will come out as I continue today's show. I'm going to hopefully articulate a couple places where they're just blatant lies. Well, let's just jump right in and talk about the debate. The craziness that Donald Trump rolled out. I didn't talk about the debate yesterday, but I want to just touch on the cats, the dogs, the eating of the animals, and then throwing that on immigrants. And this is one of those things where everyone has a cat, everyone has pets, and they use the word pets. somebody's using a dog for food. Of course, the source for that was the people on television, according to Donald Trump. And so it's funny, and there's a lot of memes, and I contributed to a couple memes that I thought were funny. I passed them along. I started to see some immigrants actually posting pictures of them eating cats and jokingly putting a cat on a plate, and then, obviously a live cat, and putting a fork in the back, not really eating it. But there was a lot of mockery and mimicry of that theme, and it certainly is a bold-faced lie. And the moderator called him out right away. He's like, you know what? We talked to the city manager. By the way, if you don't know what a city manager is, some cities, depending on whether they're incorporated or unincorporated, they can have a mayor or they can have a city manager. And so in this case, the city manager is like the mayor who was in charge of that city or that town. And the mayor said, hey, that's absolutely not true. And of course, Trump says, oh, that's, of course he'd say that. Well, I think that he'd rather probably address a problem and come up with a solution than throw all that on a community, which is what Donald Trump's doing. And so you have this huge lie that's being reverberated through the ethos and spread throughout social media. And it actually comes from racist tropes. It's saying those people, those brown people over there are taking something that's yours, and they're actually coming into your family. I actually saw somebody today online. I feel like I'm pretty sure they were very liberal, but they were reposting this and saying, oh, it's such a shame this is a reality, as if it's even close to being a reality. But because it's been repeated so much, the lie lives on. Now, if you talk about cognitive bias and you have the fact that people want to reaffirm and confirm their beliefs, and they're going to do anything they can, including ignore basic facts, then what you have is people living in an alternate reality, or as Kelly Conway said, they're relying on alternative facts to get their information. There's no possible way we can sustain the human race if we ignore facts about the universe, facts about the climate, facts about what's happening with our resources, what's happening with the inequality gap. I don't know why I'm stuttering so much. Probably because I'm just all wired up from running in here. No, I didn't do any drugs, I promise. So I think that, the debate really illustrated the fact that there's lies. Trump was caught with 33 lies. She was caught with one and a couple fudges where she used some hyperbole and some exaggeration. That to me is amazing. In a presidential debate, Donald Trump got frustrated because he had to be fact-checked. And the first thing he said is, well, why didn't they fact-check her? Why do you think that they didn't fact-check her? Because she wasn't saying crazy, whacked-out shit. Then, again, talk about the backfire effect, which I talked about yesterday. That's where somebody's faced with facts and then they double down. They double down on whatever they believe. So I say the sky is blue. You say the sky is red. I show them the sky and they say no, and they just assume that something's happened or it's a bad day because they can't accept what they see, so they double down on the lie. And one of the craziest things is that Donald Trump's whole entire party continues to double down on the crazy shit he says. So he comes up with the immigrants are eating your pets. The party then sees a pivot, and so now it's geese, which seems more reasonable. They're just going out in there, and there might be an article where somebody grabbed a goose or a geese. I guess that's plural, and they did something, and of course, they then blow that out to everybody. One of the most compelling videos I've seen in a long time today, which almost reminded me of what it might like if we had video during Nazi Germany. I'm not kidding. Is Stephen Miller is questioned. He's on the I guess it's the DNC or some rally, and he's talking to a reporter, a bevy of reporters, and one of the reporters happens to be from Venezuela, and he goes on a riff talking about the fact that the MS-13 and that apartment complex, which, by the way, the chief of police said there's no evidence saying that gangs are taking over apartment complexes. That was a film. There was some kind of event that happened. What they do is they take that singular event and they use it as the core premise to build a narrative. And then, unfortunately, the low IQ folks don't go through and say, you know what, it doesn't make sense. I drove through Aurora when I was on my trip, and it was a beautiful city. It's not being taken over by gangs, but this lives on because they can point to the video and say, see, there's people running through an apartment complex with high-powered rifles. So that means they must be taking over the apartment complex. No, it doesn't. It means that some event happened. They could have been robbing some. I'm not saying that gangs and folks don't exist in this world and there's no crime. Of course there is. But the GOP has a habit of using a singular event and then creating legislation or then creating some kind of security apparatus, which is fucking crazy, considering that they're the party that's like, oh, we're the party where we don't want government tyranny. But one thing happens, and most likely if it happens to a brown person or an immigrant, they're going to use that as a basis for creating some kind of apparatus or legislation or policy to prevent that. So it could be one thing. And so if you watch this Stephen Miller interview where he's talking with this Venezuela person, he makes some wild facts about how Venezuela has 60% less crime in it. And the Venezuelan reporter said, hey, are you taking the word of a strongman a criminal dictator? Because that's what Venezuela has. And of course that stops him in his tracks, but the reporter continues to press on, and it's a beautiful thing. Stephen Miller loses his fucking mind, but he continues to hold the lie. He doesn't answer the question, which is, where did you get those numbers? I just want to know where those numbers come from, because they sound exactly like the bullshit. They've got a Trump right down there, a real dictator. Venezuela used to be, it was actually doing very well until we started to muck around because of their oil reserves. We started to muck around with their government, and now they've got a dictator, and that's good for us because any chaos down there means that oil and everything else is probably going to be privatized, or it's going to, you got a big corporation that can buddy up with this Trump-like figure, and they can take their oil. So it always comes back to money, and most likely with some country like Venezuela or Brazil or Saudi Arabia or any country that is able to produce that black gold, you're going to have shenanigans. And and the U.S., which, I apologize to say this, but we're not that shining light on the hill. We have our own skeletons. We have our own muckraking. We mess in other people's elections all the fucking time. We don't like it when other people do it to us, but we do it all the time. I'm not suggesting I know anything about how Maduro got into power down in Venezuela. But this reporter then went on to talk about the fact that I live in Caracas. I know what the numbers are. Where did you get those numbers? And he goes off on a tangent. And then he kind of wraps it up. He realizes what he's saying, and he puts this little note at the end of that rant. And he says, well, the people that we're trying to help are the hardworking Latino families that are being besieged, is the word, by these gangs. And it was almost like a Mein Kampf kind of speech, because he raised his voice. The reporter actually put the microphone in his face and said, why are you yelling at me? I'm just asking a question. Can you answer the question? He lost his mind because he realized he doesn't know what the facts are, and he did get it from a strong man. Remember during the debate when Trump said people call them? Well, it's interesting that they're pulling Venezuela. It's interesting that he held up that Hungarian dictator as well, or that strongman. So you've got this real possibility that Donald Trump is talking to foreign leaders, and most of them, the only people that will probably acknowledge Donald Trump are those folks that are doing shady shit. They're dictators, and that's why he has this mentality of he wants to be a dictator as well. He said it. I'm not making this shit up. He's said these things. He's, no big deal. I didn't mean that. No, he has no respect for the Constitution. And so when you watch this Stephen Miller diatribe, you hear lies and you hear racism. The whole entire trope right now, and the whole entire strategy right now for the GOP is fear. And so what they're doing right now, they're going to the best playbook in the world. It worked, or that's been used. It worked during the Dixiecrats, and when they were flipping Democrats to Republicans, Republicans to Democrats, the Southern strategy where you essentially dog whistle. And in this case, we're past dog whistling. You just say the shit to make people scared. And you tap into that inherent fear that white people have for some reason, that the brown people are coming to get them. When the brown people should be fucking scared the fuck out of the European American that has been kind of besieging the entire world. You got Elon Musk, who came from South Africa. Elon Musk is from South Africa, okay? I mean, apartheid South Africa, he's an apartheid baby. And so he's leading the charge to create this aura, bringing home to the United States what he grew up with. He wants that back. I kid you not. He would love to see all the brown people gone, and he'd love to essentially create this. I was a Tesla investor for a long time, and I dropped my Tesla stock after I kind of watched him. I'm like, I didn't win. I could have stayed in it and made a lot more money. I didn't make that much money. I made good money, but not great money, not compared to the folks that held it. And I remember thinking, kind of watching it go up and just kind of crying in my sleep. Not really, but I couldn't do it. And it doesn't make me, it sounds kind of like I'm trying to put myself on a pedestal, but the point is, it didn't matter, because what he stood for, I started to see right through him. There's a narcissistic personality, again, that he can solve all the problems. He had said that before, that he could solve world hunger with $50 billion. He's got more than that. He hasn't solved world hunger, but he's one of those folks that believes that anything he thinks and says, since he's had all this privilege, that it will come true. And in many cases, people kind of kiss his ass and make things come true for him. So same thing with Trump. But this thread that I'm trying to hit on is that the GOP does not have an agenda right now. They don't have coherent plans. That's why when you watch the debate, Donald Trump talks about having a concept of a plan. That's a concept of a plan for the ACA, which is Obamacare, which has been out since 2010, 14 years. They haven't come up with an alternative that would work for America. So in real time, he said, well, I'll do it better. And if it's not, I'll try to find a plan. And they keep pressing Donald Trump. And of course, he has a concept for a plan. So has a concept for what it's going to look like when he comes up with a plan, which is really vague. But you know what his folks hear? They hear a very specific policy. Meanwhile, they're online. Here's where the hypocrite part comes. They're online suggesting that Kamala Harris has no plans. She has no brains. She's stupid. And there's really no specificity. I even see Democrats saying, well, I want to know what she stands for. Are you fucking kidding me? Again, placenta is better than Donald Trump based on the threat that he poses to folks like me, his political opposition, anybody that's in others, anybody with disabilities. He does not fucking care. He's going to do whatever to appease those folks that are in his ear. And guess what? You and I don't have Donald Trump's ear. And so the frustrating thing right now with the state of the world is that after the debate, the polarization continues. My kind of argument or thesis yesterday was that cognitive bias is what divides us, and it's hard to get people to change sides or drop a candidate or change positions because they're anchored to it. And we're in this place right now where both sides are anchored to their version of reality. And I will say, based on even what Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and other folks that are entering into the Democratic Party, it's a breath of fresh air for them because they can say things that are real and true, and they don't have to sell fear. They can sell reality. They can say, hey, look at this situation that's happening. Let's address it. That was who the GOP was before at one point. I'm not saying I agreed with their, embracing of corporate America and how they've created policies to widen the inequality gap. But they were at least at the point where they talked. Doesn't mean during campaign season they weren't using fear-mongering. I'm just saying when they came to policy, they were actually doing studies and looking at things and taking the time to understand something before they passed legislation. What I find most interesting about part of what's happening with the GOP is that they're making these claims that these immigrants are doing things, and then they want to quickly create some law, or they're going to do something drastic. I mean, Donald Trump said it's going to be bloody. They're going to deport them. And he used the word bloody when he said it. That makes no sense to me. But as someone of color who could be misidentified as being Arabic, Muslim, I kid you not, I've heard Jewish. I've heard, where are you from? I just like to say I'm exotic. But the truth is, I get, whenever they pass a bill that's going to put pressure on minorities, it's going to come down to all of us minorities, because there is no way to separate and know. The only thing they're looking at is, okay, you look different than what I would expect an American should look, and you're not European American. And so anyone that's not European American, they're looking down on, and they're gonna essentially say, well, you know what? Look, I might have been in Mexico, I might have been on the border of Texas hanging out with my friend, but I don't have my papers on me. And they come up and my friend's playing and they realize, hey, you don't have your papers, you look like them, we can throw you out. That's what happens. And this is what's scary. And people that know me and are friends with me, they don't get the kind of ripple effect that these discussions have on other communities. And so I want to just touch on the Haitian communities right now. The Haitians have had a long history of kind of oppression and slavery in their own country. And then because of all the turmoil in their country, it's a very impoverished country compared to Dominican Republic, which is on the other side of it. Haiti's extremely poor, and Dominican Republic is not, living the high life either in certain areas. But Haiti is under a different kind of poverty level. And so you have people leaving Haiti and trying to find refuge in America. And so they come here looking for work and looking for how they can integrate in their community. When someone comes from Haiti or Venezuela, it doesn't make them a criminal. But the way Donald Trump talks, it's like anybody coming over the border is a criminal. It's insane. And what does that do? That essentially kind of ripples through the community. And so we already touched on the fact that there's racism in here. You got to go watch the video of Stephen Miller. It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm not just saying it's about 4 minutes long. It's incredible to watch someone who's supposed to be a professional lose their cool when asked for basic facts. And most likely he was disrespecting that reporter because that reporter was from Venezuela. And when you watch the clip, if you get a chance to, it's pretty eye-opening about the agenda, because he kind of slams his head down like, and I almost expected him to roll out with some German. I shit you not. It was that kind of shit. And so I'm sure he's watching that and he's probably like, I was so tough, but it looks unhinged. And perhaps he's feeling the frustration of watching the polls slide into the Kamala Harris column. I don't know, but it's unhinged. But it reaffirms the fact that he's in a bubble. He's in a bubble where he's getting information from apparently a strong man, then feeding it to Americans who believe everything they say. And that party, as I said yesterday, they cling to authority. They believe in sanctity. They believe in these kind of protocols for how things should work, kind of rule-based. They don't want things to change too much. Let's fall back to the Bible for anything crazy. The Bible doesn't have it. Okay, that means private market gets it. That means money. You know what I mean? Even the Bible means money. I mean, talk about Joel Osteen. So you've got this party that is easily influenced by their authority figures. And so when an authority figure endorses that kind of thought, they ride along with it. In fact, I know people that hear that ignore it. People in my sphere that listen to that and they say, you know what? It's not a deal breaker. Yes, you might be my brother. Yes, you might be my nephew. Yes, you might be my grandpa. Yes, you might be whatever, but it's not a deal killer, because the racism thing's that's just Trump. Trump kind of gets a pass for a lot of shit that no other politician could get a pass for. There's no fucking way in hell Obama could have 34 convictions on his record and think he's just going to mosey on in the White House. But Donald Trump's rolling right in. Those are all bullshit. Okay, let's just say Obama had 40, all the cases against him that Trump has, and they were bullshit. Would you still allow him to run for office? Well, no, that's because Obama's a communist. I mean, they got answers for everything. And again, we're walking back into that cognitive bias where they're faced with facts and they double down. And what's interesting about that Stephen Miller video is he doubles down on the statement. Even when the guy presses him, he doubles down on the lie. That's fucking scary shit. So we're in this climate right now where the polarization's out of control. It's insane. And I know I'm not necessarily part of the solution by kind of creating this rah-rah, dump my feelings on the internet live stream. But my mental health's more important. Jokes. But the truth is that I'm trying to at least help people understand what's going on, or at least people that listen to me, or maybe for the future academic that says, hey, what the fuck was happening in the 21st century wow, there's obscure video of this guy that's really I'm kind of fantasizing about that. Maybe I'll have some kind of legacy where people say, oh, wow, you made sense. But the truth is, I'm trying to be truthful. I follow a lot of folks that kind of parse this stuff, and I try to read as much as I can, and you have to sift through it, and it's tough. I would say I spend 65% of my time on social media blocking. I don't care. I block without cause because not only does that help me, but it also prevents them from connecting to my network and getting into somebody else. Let's say I accept what they have or I like or follow them or do some shit like that. Somebody else says, oh, Nate does that. And that actually kind of allows them through the algorithms to connect to other accounts. So I'm very careful to try to not connect. Somebody told me I should just let the engagement go. It's a disaster. You have no idea how bad it is until you run a page and you start seeing all the spam that comes in. And so we're in this very polarized moment right now. And it's really kind of being ginned up by a party that will not face reality. And you've got them using fear. Adam Kinzinger, it's brilliant. Check out the clip. He talks about his contribution to this effort for the GOP to sell fear. It's by design. Let's scare the fuck out of them. And he uses this language. He says, if you get people scared enough and you tell them there's a threat to their family, they'll give you your last dollar. This was coming from a U.S. congressperson who was a Republican and said this was our agenda. And so people wonder, and you're probably thinking, no, Nate, you're just kind of blanket. No, they planned to say we can get more money with people that we can scare. And so they're scaring the shit out of everybody. The rant that Stephen Miller goes off on, he articulates that the gangs are taking over cities. He actually says that. One of the instances he uses is an individual who was disabled that was beaten and raped brutally by an immigrant. And so that one issue, which is super horrible, is now becoming this catalyst to talk about why we should just wipe them out. No matter how bloody it is, we just get the fucking brown people out. I wish I didn't have to call the presidential nominee for the Republican Party a racist, a liar, and a hypocrite. But when you look at a duck and it's swimming in the water and it's quacking and then it gets out of the water and it does that little walk and you know they do those rocket poops and then it's like quack, it almost says quack quack, and then you see a bunch of other things that are objects that look exactly like that, your brain goes, wow, that's a fucking duck. And so if it walks and shits and swims like a duck, Occam's razor, it's probably a fucking duck. And so that's why, you know, I'm kind of, I don't want to do it, but you have to just say what it is. And Donald Trump is a racist. He is a liar. That's documented. And of course he's a hypocrite because during the loss of the debate, he went through and said, hey, you know, it's not fair. They don't deserve this. It's a two-tier justice system. So he's always saying, hey, by the way, Central 5, you should execute those people. Just allegations, and he wanted to execute somebody. So to me, that's somebody that says, hey, you know what? You commit crimes, we bring the death penalty. I commit crimes, well, it's not fair. Things aren't, you know, you guys are victimizing me. It's insane, and that continues. For the Republicans, they cannot detach themselves from Donald Trump. And so what do you do? What do you do when you're faced with reality, you're faced with facts, and you're so tied to your beliefs? We know this is a trick question, by the way. Pop quiz. If you watched yesterday, you know it's called the backfire effect. You double down. You double down because it's so disappointing and the cognitive dissonance just kicks in. There's no possible way that fact or reality can change what I know to be true. Even with my own senses, it doesn't matter. I know it. My gut says it. And it's true. And plus, Donald Trump said it, who is an authoritative figure. And that, to me, is the ultimate truth teller. And so Donald Trump reinforces the lie. And so the state of the world right now is a hellscape. I do feel like there's movement in the right direction towards Kamala Harris gaining some points. But it's not pretty. And you can tell that MAGA is falling apart, especially after that video with Stephen Miller. I mean, he loses his shit. And I'm assuming he probably knows what the polls are. He knows what's going on. He knows that there's a very good chance that if this continues, Donald Trump could lose. So it's super hard for folks that are undecided. I don't know how you're undecided at this point. Perhaps because politics is messy. You don't like to get dirty. But it's super important for them to continue and maintain the lie. They actually use the backfire effect. So one of the things that's nice about being a Republican and buying into that whole bullshit that they've been selling you, which they said it out loud that they are trying to scare you Republicans so you get off your ass. They're using your vulnerability, your fear of others to get your money and your vote. This is what the plan is. So when you want to break down what the GOP's plan is, you start to come up with monikers like racist or lies or that's hypocrisy. And these names, these nouns certainly have been the basis for every single thing Republicans are doing right now. They lied about Kamala Harris having any brain to be able to debate. Of course, we watched with our own eyes. We saw her debate. We saw her kick his ass. Then they said, well, she must have cheated. She had the question. It's not cool that she prepared. I actually saw somebody say that, oh yeah, but she had to prepare for weeks. What was he doing? He was handling business or doing whatever the fuck he's doing. But this person made the argument that studying for a debate or preparation was a weakness. It's a sad state of affairs when you're rooting for somebody to just wing it and they're going for the most powerful job in the world. But again, that's that backfire effect where you double down because you can't accept reality. What's even crazier right now in the state of the world is that Donald Trump, the racist, is carting around Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer is a YouTuber. She's a polemicist, which means she likes to fucking muckrake a little bit, tries to be controversial by counter-arguing everything and always picking the wrong thing. But she hangs around and is a proponent of white supremacy. She hangs out with white nationalists. She's not scared to talk about it on Twitter. And so he's riding around with her right now on his campaign trail today. Google it, Laura Loomer. Look at her history. She's been banned from Twitter. She's just an awful, awful person who has this white supremacist ideology. He has her in his plane flying around the country. And this is so bad that Marjorie Taylor actually tweeted something at Laura Loomer telling her you can't talk like that. What did she do? That Marjorie Taylor slammed this white supremacist. And I'm not going to say Marjorie Taylor's a white supremacist, but I know she has affiliations and certainly been seen and attended those meetings. True story. Google it. This isn't me making it up. It got so bad, though, and she's smart to know that, I don't know why I'm slurring, smart enough. She's smart enough to know that what Laura Loomer said on Twitter was horrible, and she asked her to remove it. What she said was, the White House is going to smell like curry if Kamala Harris wins, and it was just a long diatribe that was racist against her Indian heritage. She then went and called out Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham agreed that with Marjorie Taylor, these are all Republicans. Marjorie Taylor is MAGA world. Like, she's the biggest MAGA person. And then you got Lindsey Graham, which is just a flim-flammer. Well, Laura Loomer, sounds like Days of Our Lives. Laura Loomer posted, hey, Lindsey, you're gay, you're closeted, get out of the closet. And of course, I'm not going to say I haven't ever said something awful like that, but the infighting is happening and occurring within this right-wing sect. And OG Republicans, which Lindsey Graham used to before he became a polyp in Trump's ass, they're calling her out. But this person that they're calling out, this senator, Republican senator from South Carolina and Marjorie Green Taylor, I don't know where the fuck she's from, she's a congressperson. They're both right-wing folks, whatever. They're telling this person how awful they are. And Donald Trump's right. Lindsey Graham made the statement that it doesn't look good with Donald Trump palling around with this person. So you've got two people that I completely disagree with on 95% of the world telling Donald Trump and this woman that they should not talk the way they're doing. Marjorie Green Taylor was specific about the fact that she said you should take that post down because it wasn't appropriate. It was completely a racist post. This is what's happening right now. So when people want to say, oh, he's not a racist, I'm like, why does he hang out with racists then? He's on the campaign trail right now with a known racist who was banned from Twitter before the ultimate white supremacist Elon Musk bought it. Why is he doing that? And it's not being, I mean, it's talked about, but it's kind of like, oh, we understand. It's Donald Trump. He's just hanging out with her. Lindsey Graham thinks it's a bad idea. Marjorie Green Taylor thinks it's a bad idea. And I fucking won't say this ever again, but I agree with both of them. It's a bad idea. It's bad for us, but it doesn't seem to phase his base. They don't care. I don't think every Republican is racist, but if you're a racist, you're most likely Republican, or you're most likely going to vote Republican. And that's just a fact. The Democratic Party is so diverse that we can't get anything done. We got to hear everybody's ideas. We want to make sure everyone feels nice, warm, and fuzzy, and they're okay with their identity to be accepted. And we'll change the pronouns and all that stuff. And I'm not saying it's bad, but that requires thought. It requires openness. It requires compromise. These aren't things that are in the Republican base. They're not. It's not in their ethos. And so you have them, since they're a singular focus. I always say they like to goose step. Right, they goose step all in line, very well, very good at. They're the best goose steppers I've ever heard. So when one of them gets out of line and when they start kind of messing up the beat, there's hope, in my opinion, that they'll implode from within. Donald Trump will lose, and we can get back to a real Republican Party because we need debate. But right now, the state of the world is that Donald Trump's riding around in his plane, in his campaign, with a known racist. Even the right MAGA people in Congress are uncomfortable with this. And so I don't know why they're surprised, but, you know, he was kind of like a horse that painted some stripes on himself, and then he wanted to act like he was a zebra. But he's not a zebra, and he's a fucking horse that's been basically camouflaged to fool you. And I don't know why you're fooled, because the paint's dripping off the fucking horse. There's nothing on it. The emperor has no clothes. Lindsey Graham said himself that if we accept Donald Trump, we deserve whatever we get. I mean, it seems like it's coming home to roost right now. I really do. I believe it's coming home to roost. And I don't know what that term means, but I remember it from, what's the movie? What's the fucking movie with the football Adam Sandler guy? I don't know. Anyway, see what happens when I run in here all unprepared and I talk to somebody and now I'm like all wound up. But this week, I think, should be defined by the lies of Donald Trump, the fact that he's running around with a racist, and then at the same time, the hypocrisy that comes out of Lindsey Graham is unbelievable. This is a person that said Donald Trump was xenophobic. He's a racist. He said all these things, and then now he's essentially part of it. I don't know if they have anything on Lindsey Graham, but for Laura Loomer to call out Lindsey Graham, and she went explicit and said, you're closeted. It's okay. I like men too. We have something in common. It was brutal. Public humiliation on Lindsey Graham, and here he is. He's going to have to swallow his pride, because the next time he sees Donald Trump, he might be standing beside this woman. Donald Trump likes Laura Loomer. He likes to be with people that don't give a fuck. He likes that psychopathy that they exude, because she doesn't have any feelings. She don't give a fuck. She wants her agenda, which is to rid and remove or subjugate anybody that doesn't look like her or isn't European American. And this is known. She has a manifesto. She has all this shit on YouTube and all the platforms she's not banned on. She's essentially that person. Think David Duke for you old folks, but in a woman form. And she's, a younger, semi-attractive woman that's running around spouting this nonsense, and Donald Trump's invited the female version of David Duke on his plane, and the Republicans are uneasy about it. So there's some fragmentation that should be discussed about what this means to the Republican Party. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for them. I don't think they're going to fragment. I think they'll unify behind Donald Trump because they have ignored the racism already, and it's part of the feature. When you're selling fear, racism is a bonus because if the person's racist, you know exactly how to get them scared. You can say, hey, by the way, brown people are coming, and they'll be motivated. They'll do whatever the fuck they want. As Adam Kinzinger said, they'll give you their last penny so they can protect their family. And so racism is a feature of the Republican Party because it fits in the narrative where they can create enough fear so they can get the money. They're extracting the money, extracting the votes, getting you off your ass. Oh my gosh, the brown people are coming. You see that video? You see the CCTV? That's what he said. The CCTV, you see it? If you see that, then you know everything's a fact. I mean, it's CCTV. It could be from any apartment anywhere. The only reason I believe it was from Aurora, is because, you know, the police chief actually talked about it. Otherwise, I would not trust any source they have. When you do a Google search for some of this stuff, you'll find about 15 to 20 articles at the top that are all right-wing rags. When you look at the source for where this story comes from, it usually comes down to one or two that originally print it. You look at who the author is, you go to the Twitter account, you can start to understand how they're able to generate this much buzz on a lie. But a juicy lie like that it's easy. And then they love to say that, oh, you can't believe it now. You can't believe that immigrants were eating people's pets. No, I can't believe it. You show me a video of it, it might be a one-off, but is it an epidemic? Are you suggesting that all Haitians eat people's pets? I mean, that's what people take from it, especially if that racism's in your blood. Every white person watching, every white person in this world knows another white person that's racist. That's a fact. Just admit that. Every single fucking person that's watching this show that's white, you know somebody who's racist. And so if that's a truth, if that's a fact, or not just something Nate Bomberger says, then how do I tap into those racists? Because those guys are motivated. Oh, wow, the brown people are coming. Sure enough, I'll give you my money. What are you going to do to save me from the brown folks? And it doesn't matter how ridiculous the story is, because once the story's debunked, they'll double down. Point in case, the magic earring scandal. Apparently, Kamala Harris had magic earrings on where she was listening in for answers. I don't know who was giving her the answers, but I know one thing's for sure is the magic earrings had nothing to do with the dumb shit Donald Trump was saying. And so that is lost on them, though. They can't understand how she won. It has to be something she did. You know what? It was probably average comparatively maybe to Obama or some other debate that might have been more substantive. But Donald Trump was so shit. I'm not taking anything away from Kamala Harris, by the way. She did a fantastic job of working a narcissist. She used textbook methods to work the narcissist, to goad him into narcissist collapse. Maybe it's because I didn't drink any water. I think my mouth's dry, and that's why my mouth's dry, and I'm just like rolling saliva trying to keep hydrated. Not to paint that, sorry about that image, but so today's, kind of placard was racist, liar, hypocrite. I don't think I need more examples to talk about the racism that I'm seeing. I mean, even just throwing it out there that it's those people that are doing this crazy, ridiculous thing. I mean, if we're going to go by that, we could say, Jeffrey Dahmer ate a person. I mean, we could just paint all white people as cannibals. I mean, look at the mass shootings. Most of those are white people. Should we say all white people need to be deported? This is where it gets really scary and ironic, is that the Republican Party is so quick to put in anything that threatens their security. They won't do a study. They won't do it. They won't do any kind of what's the side effects of this. They're just out there throwing policy at it, creating new laws, creating new barriers for folks without thinking about the implications of it. What are the implications of saying that Haitian people are eating their pets? Well, anyone that looks like an other Can you tell the difference between a Haitian, a Dominican, a Puerto Rican, and a black? Sure, a lot of people can. But most likely, if you're white on there, you probably have no idea, and you have no idea the difference between all those, and you probably wouldn't even know if I cut my hair a certain way and wore my beard a certain way, you might think I'm a Dominican, and I get that all the time. So it then becomes a game of, well, you know what? Since we're the people in charge, we're just going to start checking, stop and frisk. We'll just better safe than sorry. And so guess what? Now your favorite fucking podcaster becomes one of those people that gets pulled in and tested and vetted and treated like this. And I'm not saying you should treat anybody like this, but that's the point. I'm going to become a target. I will become a target. And I'm sure the officers watching this that fucking beat me up are like, yeah, motherfucker, we're coming if Trump wins. I honestly think about that. I think about the knuckleheads that beat me up, like watching this stream and thinking, oh, I can't wait to fucking find you on something. I don't even drive a car barely anymore because I don't want to get pulled over at all in this fucking town, knowing that the corruption that lives in this fucking town, documented. My wife documented it too. So, I think about that stuff, but Trump wins. I'm a little scared. You can laugh and say it's weird, but you don't know what it's like to walk around with this shell, walk into a department store. Like I said the other night, if my wife parks the car, I tell her to make sure she doesn't park illegally parks. One time she pulls up, just parks. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? She gets out of the car. She comes back. I'm freaking out. I'm like, what's going on? You can't just leave me kind of double parked in this mall, this place. I'm sitting here. I mean, someone will ride by, anybody ride by and say, ooh, there's a suspicious man sitting in a car. Trust me, it happens, real shit. So when he starts talking about that thing, I'm talking selfishly, but it ripples throughout all the communities. Not just the Latinos, not just the Haitians, not just this demographic. It goes through all of them because the whiteness will just say it's others, and the European American has decided that they are the rulers of the land in many cases. And you can be offended by this, but most likely you're not doing enough to challenge the status quo and fight racism. And I'll say that I'm 100% sure that any fucking white person watching this, that you're not doing enough to fight racism. I'm just saying, you may have adopted some black kids. Oh, you're the savior. Give me that shit. I'm talking about speaking out, doing things, challenging the system, asking questions, pushing things, spending money on the right policies or politicians. Every single fucking chance you see something, calling it out. I'm telling you, no, you're not doing enough because they still live in this situation. And it's white people that need to fix it. It's not my fucking problem to fix this fucking system. It was created without people of color, was created many ways to keep people down. So all this sounds kind of like the same thing the GOP is saying, right? I'm talking about fear. I'm talking about a fear that's real. This is a real fear when Donald Trump says, hey, it's going to be bloody and we're going to export all the gangs. Well, how are you going to define somebody that is a gang? Is it a tattoo? What are you going to do? What's the defining attribute that says, oh, this is a gang member and there's no, you can't do that. You need to check everybody. And so that means everybody gets checked. And I can guarantee you, you're not going to get checked. You're not going to get checked. I will. The only exception, I don't know why, my wife is always the one that gets pulled out in the TSA, bomb checked and everything. It doesn't matter if I go through. I'm actually surprised I don't get pulled over, but I've never been kind of frisked at TSA. So maybe it's because people at the TSA of color, or a lot of people are of color. But for some reason, I find it hilarious watching my wife always have to go through. And, she goes through the whole gamble, and they pulled her shoes down one time, did the whole thing. Probably 3 or 4 times we've gone through, and I just kind of skate through no matter what. So love you, TSA. It's just nice to see it in reverse, to be honest with you. I'm not saying it's cool seeing my wife being, manhandled by TSA. I don't like it at all, but it's just an interesting kind of holy shit. And by the way, I that really does sound like I like to see it. I enjoy it, but I think it's an interesting position that I deal with all the time. Again, I walk out of here and I sit in this parking lot outside, and there's an officer that sometimes sits out here, and I've been uncomfortable. I've known I see him watching me. I'm in my own fucking place where I work. sitting in my car reading the phone or doing something. That's how it is. And so all this stuff that I'm talking about, the placard was racist, liars, and hypocrites. It kind of trickles down to this, the human experience that I have. And that a lot of folks have. When they start talking about this and using fear, it just ripples through. And I know that if Donald Trump is elected, he said he's going to go after people, late night hosts, all kinds of people, because he wants to talk about people that are saying lies about him. And to him, a narcissist, anything that doesn't make him feel good and fill up his narcissistic supply, he's going to be pissed. So the state of the world right now is super polarized. You've got really a couple bumps in the polls for Kamala Harris because of the Taylor Swift bump. I'm going to call it the Taylor Swift bump. She's killing it right now. She put out 2 kind of calls to action to her Swifties to go register to vote. I didn't know this, but she has places to register to vote at her concerts. So she's on a fucking mission, and I love it. And so that's one of the good things is whether you're right or left, you go to a Taylor Swift concert and you're gonna see registered places to register to vote. So, man, I am tired. I think that's what it is. Sorry, guys. I'm not trying to stutter too much, but maybe I need a glass of water. So let me see if I got all my points. The Laura Loomer thing's huge. Just want to reiterate. Take a look at that. If you're doing a Google search, go down about 15 spots. Never go to the first or second page. Just skip it because it's all ads. But if you're trying to figure out what's happening there, I don't necessarily recommend going to Twitter. But you can see all the things she talks about. By the way, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he allowed her back on the platform along with Donald Trump. 2 people were banned from that platform. He put them back on. He's all about free speech, right? So the other interesting thing is watching Elon Musk say weird shit to Taylor Swift. He offered to put a baby in her for whatever reason on Twitter. This is a man that's one of the richest people in the world. And, obviously Taylor Swift is on the other side of the aisle compared to Elon Musk's authoritarian desires. But it's gotten weird. And right now, I think the moniker that somebody put out there for the GOP was weird. And that was kind of sticking. I'm going to say weirder. This week, the best word for the GOP is weirder. Their internal fragmentation of, where the hard right is fighting with the hard right. And then Donald Trump, who's hard right, is losing people from, he's not going to lose anybody because if anybody kind of steps out of the goose step, they automatically lose their power. As you can see, there's a whole host of folks. Joe Walsh, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, Jim Amash, I think his name is. All people that were Republicans that stood on principle and have been ostracized by the party. And so that's because they were considered disloyal to Trump. If you look at the tweet that Laura Loomer sent, she uses a specific word when she's talking about Lindsey Graham, and she says, "You're disloyal to him and the country." But it's interesting that she says you're disloyal. There's this oath pledge that they do, this blood oath, that somehow once you get into Donald Trump's web, you're fucking stuck and you can't get out unless you want to kind of leave a withered and blood dry skeleton, because that's what happens to every single person. Now, the person goes on to thrive once they see the light and they're like, oh God, I'm so glad that I'm out of that. Every single fucking person that's a MAGA person or kind of under that Donald Trump spell, and then they leave, it's like they see sunshine again. I'm not just making this up. It's because when somebody's lying so much and you have to continue to support them and you're just anchored to that person and your whole identity is you're a Trumper and you're like, no way I'll vote for that woman. I don't like her voice and blah, 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 all the dumb shit people say. Cognitive bias holds you back. And that is something that GOP is using. They're using the fact that when they find out what your fear is, they can get the backfire effect, which I talked about yesterday, which is a motivator. You're going to double down on the lie. They're going to repeat the lie. You're going to say, wow, I'm still hearing, even though Nate's saying this and everything's and the balls are in my face, I still think the emperor has clothes. It is the fable we're in right now, folks. And whether or not it's going to end with Donald Trump marching right up to the presidency and everyone in the party going, holy fuck, I now see it because what the fuck is happening? And they're just, or they see it and they say, what the fuck? And they just continue to act as if it's not happening, which is really what Lindsey Graham's doing right now. He's trying to slowly get off the train, I believe. Same with Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney comes out and is giving support to Kamala Harris, saying she's very capable. Now, a GOP senator with the kind of chutzpah of Mitt Romney. Is chutzpah the right word? Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. I'm not stroking out. Don't worry. But when Mitt Romney gets on board and he starts putting out words like, oh, I think Kamala Harris is capable. I mean, you're putting a huge dent in the narrative that GOP's been trying to kick around, which is that she's not capable and she's not smart and she can't do the job. Here comes Mitt Romney, of course, seeing the trend early, says she's capable. And so I made a prediction a while ago that hopefully people would start to see that there is no robe and some of the smarter people would peel off. It's starting to happen a little bit and it's a little chaotic, but I'm not really sure if the backfire effect isn't going to push him over the hump, because now you have people that are upset, angry, and motivated, and they're not exasperated. They want it. They think that their family's livelihood depends on it because the brown people are coming over the border. They have said time and time again, the border is it's a winning issue. It's not a fucking issue to me. It wouldn't be an issue if I was in Texas. I drove down in the Midwest and everything else. I was not thinking, oh my God, I'm worried about the border. Nothing. It's a made up fear, and it only really hits you if you're racist. Literally, I'm not shitting you. If you're scared of the fucking border, if you're on my feed or you're talking about the border is the big problem, you're a racist. That's the facts. When you think that there's a problem with a border, that's not a problem. It's open border and all this shit. And Nate, you don't know, man. Talk to border control. I'm not going to talk to border control, and I'm not going to take border control's word for it. I'm not going to take law enforcement word for it, knowing what their agenda is and knowing that if they can get these bills to pass, it means more money for them. It's a money play. So of course they're going to say, oh, it's horrible. We need more resources. I want that new, AK-47 or whatever the fuck gun they want. Money to them is good. So I don't necessarily trust the border control as much as I would trust data gathered by the border control, sent to me in something where I could analyze it or somebody can analyze it, talk about real measures, not hyperbole, not saying people are, coming the whole way from Venezuela here and the dictator of Venezuela is sending his criminals here and we're just letting them in. It's all made up fear, and it really taps into the core component which motivates you, and that's racism. So they're using lies to get you motivated, to make you scared, and they're tapping into your inherent racism. And I apologize. I'm saying every fucking one of you, none of your exception, including myself. I have a little bit of prejudice in myself, of course, about whatever. I'm not going to say I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm open-minded, but I'm sure you could find some things that might be a little quirky about how I feel about certain situations. But there's nothing that somebody's going to say to make me go, you know what? Those discomforts that you have, I need to create a wall around them and protect. Nothing scares me. I might have reservations about something, and then when I learn about it, I go, okay, I understand that. For instance, if there's a community that does really, perhaps an Asian community that does in their home country allow the dogs to be eaten, that's something that I would certainly be, it would be a horrible thing to kind of witness, but I'm imagining that there are places on earth where people do eat whatever they can get. They're certainly not coming to America and taking people's pets. And so if I was talking to somebody from that country, I might automatically assume that they contribute to that. Just like somebody that comes to America might say, well, everybody eats beef here. And that's not true. And so that's a falsehood no matter what. Americans eat beef. Americans also don't eat beef. There might be this country that eats this and it's a delicacy, and there might be people that absolutely think it's atrocious. And I don't know which countries do, and I don't even know what's possible, but I certainly know what Donald Trump was saying about folks coming from Haiti and eating our pets, and people are, they've got this whole, I mean, what the fuck is that? Why would they eat our pets? They could go to the SPCA and get whatever they want and have a feast. I mean, it's ridiculous to think they're coming after people's pets. So, and it really is racist, and the Haitian community's hating on it right now. Of course they would, because it's directly people are targeting them. There's bomb threats. There's all kinds of crazy shit happening in their communities because of the fear mongering that the Republican Party's using to pack their campaign coffers. If any of this was false, you can call me out on it. You can email me. You can send me a text. But I promise you, this fear-based campaigning is part of the strategy. It's why we're all upset. It's why we're fighting what folks are saying is an invasion. And we have to kind of calm them down and say, are you fucking kidding me? And then a couple clips of one-offs of things happening. A rape here by an immigrant, that it means every immigrant's raping people. A murder over here by an immigrant, that means immigrants are murdering people. And so their righteous indignation, what Stephen Miller said, the most virtuous thing to do is get them all out of the country. So, I mean, to me, they're not even holding back. It's straight up, we're out with it. We've got an agenda. It's racist. We're going to lie about it. It doesn't matter if we're hypocrites. We're not going to know the difference between this guy and that guy. It's just going to be, are you European American or not? If you're European American, you're safe. This ain't your fucking country. Somebody actually had the balls to say it today on Twitter, to put out this whole thread about how this is, immigrants are taking our nation. I'm like, are you indigenous? Like, are you a Native American? Because this ain't your fucking country. This wasn't your land. This ain't like the dumbass, Israel, Gaza. We're like, oh, we lived here first. No, you did. Or you lived here 200 years. And it's like, no one was on this land besides the indigenous population who came over on the Bering Strait. And it's been theirs. We tricked them. We murdered them. We raped their women. We did all kinds of shit. I say we because I'm half European American. But the European Americans of this country stole this land through the same kind of methodology that Israel's using to take Gaza. It's just a fact. It may annoy you, but these are truths. And so when you have a whole population that has been given something and they feel then entitled, you can tap into their entitlement, which I'm going to say is masking their racism, and you can create fear. And so every fucking time I see one of my friends or any of my colleagues or somebody talk about the border, especially when they're looking across the table from me and they're living in Pennsylvania, I get this sick feeling that depending on the circumstances, I could be trying to cross the border to save my family and they wouldn't give two fucks, even if I was the exact same person. So that is not going to move the needle. It's not going to tell anybody anything you don't know. But at some point, these state of the worlds are going to be kind of hey, this is what happened during this week. And this week was a shit show for the country in that we have this embarrassing nominee and this party that refuses to look facts in the eye. They refuse to accept a loss, and they refuse to not tell Donald Trump that he's naked. And so he's walking around thinking he's fine. Everyone's telling him how great he is. And you've got these cowards surrounding him, and it's going to continue and continue. Joe Walsh made the statement that, I think it was in New Hampshire. He said, look, if you really want to get rid of Trump in the Republican Party, he's still Republican, we've got to make sure Donald Trump loses in a landslide, because he'll never, ever go away if it's close. And if it's close, he's going to say it's rigged, and it's just going to be forever and ever. And you're going to have all his people behind him. We know what he can do with his dumbass mouth. He can incite a riot, And his folks, the low IQ folks that follow him, will march into the Capitol, take shits in the Capitol, offer to hang Mike Pence, all kinds of crazy shit. And it's by design. So if something like that were to happen, I would say that the entire GOP, who are scared to call out this fucking narcissist, are cowards and complicit in the act. Because it's very, if you're catering to the low edge people and the folks that have these fears, most likely they're not educated. Most likely they haven't been overseas. Or if they have, they were in the military and they came back in the military. You have your different stuff going on. For sure, everyone's a brother. But they don't kind of do any psychological help for you to help you understand. You integrate with your team. That's your team. And then you go back home and you pick up right where you left off with the racism, most likely. A lot of folks do. So you have this military people that think that they're Donald Trump supporting the military, but really Donald Trump wants the military folks for him because he wants to be that dictator. And so again, they're being used. They're being used. So you've got lies and racism, and then you've got this ability to manipulate people that believe in you. And sure enough, he's got the endorsement from the Fraternal Order of Police. That's fucking scary. Wonder why he has that. Well, because he offered complete immunity. You can beat up, kill somebody on the job. You're good. Imagine that. Oops, I shot somebody, which did happen. We saw it. And he wants to just make that person okay to walk out the door, or maybe get a suspension at the most. And then at the worst, they'd have to go to another precinct. True story. So abortion seems to also be front and center, and Donald Trump is losing on that battle. But I do believe that the folks that are abortion folks are never going to come off that fence. It doesn't matter if Donald Trump did shoot somebody. It wouldn't matter if Donald Trump was a pedophile. These people would vote for him. I'm not kidding you. I know for a fact. You're like, oh no, if he was a pedophile, you wouldn't. No, if Donald Trump was a pedophile, if he was, there's no evidence that he's a pedophile, but if he was the worst of the worst and he did some vile act like that, they would vote for him because abortion is more important. It's weird. You don't understand it, but they're more about the person or this fetus that's in the belly than they are about what happens after birth. Even though Donald Trump seemed concerned with these executions that never happened, which is another crazy lie that he doubled down on. Then his followers doubled down on it. They had all these examples of, fetuses being used for science and everything else, and talking about how babies are left on tables. What it comes down to is they're trying to articulate what palliative care is. And my wife worked in palliative care, and it's when a baby's born and doesn't have the ability to adapt to the environment, and it's going to die. And so it's a matter of days sometimes it's weeks. That's what they're focusing on. That's what they're actually talking about, which is fucked up, because if anyone's gone through that system, it's not the type of situation where it's like, oh yeah, let's make sure we keep this baby alive, or I'm going to kill this baby. It's a dire situation. The person has gone 9 months. This is what I find interesting about women in the GOP that support abortion. It's like, can you imagine having to carry something in your body, taking all your resources? I cannot imagine this, obviously. And then you're ready to prepare for a family, and then your baby's born and it doesn't have the capacity. There's nothing they can do to save it. So they try to do what they can to put the baby at ease, just like they would an old person. Palliative care. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it takes longer. And this is the thing that they've used, which is a horrible, horrible, fucked up thing, but they've spun it so that so their followers can then pass on articles and say, see, here's one. See, here's one. And I swear to God, that's what they're doing. And they're really taking these very personal, awful situations and using it for political gain. Not unheard of in both parties. But again, it's a direct attack on women's productive rights. And I believe that women are starting to see that. And not that they didn't see it before, but I think that is going to rub folks that have a vagina the wrong way, saying, hey, by the way, you're not mature enough to carry to term, and we don't believe you, so we're going to make it very difficult, and you might end up bleeding out in the car. That's what she was talking about. These are late-term situations that, are very rare, and my wife worked in labor and delivery for 15 years. She can tell you all about it. She worked in palliative care for a little bit as well, so she knows all about it. We have no kids. It's one of the reasons why she got out of it. She's like, you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. And so we talked about that tonight, and she's like, yeah, it's not it's not execution. It's not anything like that. It's awful, and it's a traumatic event. And now they're using that for political gain to say that people are executing babies because it's low IQ folks, and you just need to say enough to get them scared, tap into their fears with a little bit of, spicy meatball, and they're motivated. And then when Nate or Jackie comes along and tries to explain something, of course, they double down on their bullshit. And they say, well, 9 months is too long. I don't want to. It's not that simple. It's actually more complex. And it's probably why you as a non-physician, non-medical professional should just stay the fuck out of it and say, you know what? Sounds like a medical problem I never want anybody to have. So let's make sure they have all the resources to prenatal care, de-stressing, give the woman time off from work, all the things that would help somebody be more prone to have a healthy baby by taking the stress and getting that cortisol out of their body. There's no thought of that. There's no fucking thought of that. But that's becoming a big issue too. So you've got this hypocrisy. As soon as it happens to somebody, though, that they know, of course, those people, which again, I think this is where the GOP is going to lose, is there's a lot of women in the party that continue to support, and they may be pro-choice, but they like maybe money, or they like whatever. Maybe they're addicted to Donald Trump, whatever the reason. Maybe it's their religion. But this is when it happens to somebody, it does change their mind. And if you go back to yesterday's much more articulate rant, I talk about the fact that there's a lot of people in the conservative party that don't believe anything exists, or they believe in this rules of law until it happens to them, and then they want exceptions for themselves, and comes to my big word, which is hypocrisy. And I think these three things are what the GOP is running on: race, lies, and hypocrisy. And that's by design, and everything they're doing is to scare their base and get them motivated. And so we've got to, how do you fix it? I'm not here to talk solutions today. I don't know. I mean, I tried to break it down yesterday by talking about cognitive bias, right? I'm trying to think about what does that fucking mean? Why don't people want to move when they're faced with facts? Well, we kind of went through that. And now when you have a party that knows this and utilizes it to get us divided, that should be enough to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I start questioning their intentions. Maybe that's why things aren't changing the same, even though they did have the majority, even though Trump did do all these things. And to suggest that it was better when Trump was president, for Christ's sake, I was losing my mind locked up in my house for a couple months. Millions of people died. 1 million people died because Donald Trump decided to ignore facts, and it backfired. And guess what? They doubled down on the lie. And so who do they blame? Once faced with the facts, it's got to be somebody else's fault. Dr. Fauci doesn't know what he's doing. He's a Marxist, terrorist, whatever. Fucking guy worked for NIH for years. I have relatives that work there that still will vote for Donald Trump. I don't even fucking understand it. And it's like you got this person that's working in your field, and you're imagining that, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to buy into the party's lie when I'm a medical professional. It's fucking bizarre to me. People in my sphere. I didn't say family because it's people in my sphere. I'm not allowed to say family and friends anymore. I have to say sphere. This was an instruction from one of my listeners. And I'm not trying to, look, I don't want to make people feel bad personally. I don't want to personally attack. But these concepts and these dichotomies, these two conflicting superpositions of thought and philosophy break my brain. I don't understand how they walk. Well, that's where the hypocrisy comes. They don't self-inspect. They don't see the irony, and they're anchored to either religion or some ideology that ties them to this belief. When faced with facts, even facts that are part of their job, they ignore them. And they go and vote for somebody that's been an absolute terror for women's health. Ron DeSantis is down there doing state level shit, crazy shit in Florida. He went and banned books. He's also trying to pave roads over state parks. He wants to drill in oil in all the state parks. He's gone wild down there. Let's see what else has happened this week. Oh, I mean, the tensions between the Lindsey Graham and the Laura Loomer part and the Marjorie Taylor Greene is interesting. I don't think it'll affect Trump's image, though. And that's what's amazing. It doesn't matter. It's on brand that Trump's just, I mean, he admitted in the debate that he met with some guy, Abdul. And if you listen carefully, he said, I showed him a picture of his house and then he decided he wouldn't do it. I mean, he's like, yeah, I'm like, hey, buddy, here's your house. I know where your house is. If you do something, we're going to get your house. That's his way of negotiating. And that was his way of showing strength. It's schoolyard basic shit. It's so toddler-esque, but it's Donald Trump, and that's what we're living right now. Let me see if I got anything else, because I need some water. I don't know let me see if there's any comments. I don't know what you guys thought of yesterday. Maybe no one liked yesterday. Oh, NBC News, Harris debate nabs more than 67 mil. Oh, okay, cool. Who wrote that? What happens if you tell the nation for 8 years you have a plan for when you take away 40 million Americans' health care by ending the ACA? Then admit in a presidential debate there isn't a plan. Yeah, I know. That was a huge one too. I don't know who that was, but a golf Twitter. Funny, you fucker. Who is that? You fucking motherfucker. Someone called themselves a golf Twitter. May take a little time, but 40 million people who opened on the ACA should be kind of pissed. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the entire debate, Donald Trump and the GOP have been talking about how there's no specificity. And then when asked if there was a plan for replacing the ACA, he's got nothing. And so it's amazing to me. I've said this before, like they were running on repeal and replace for a while. And now if you're still running on repeal and replace, it's bizarre. It's actually 14 years since that. So I don't think that, I don't know if that person's fucking with me, but they are with that name. We'll talk about that later. Maybe they're on YouTube, because I don't know. YouTube's a crazy world, and maybe that's. Thank you, Agoff Twitter. Fucker, make me say. I'm gonna probably pull a huge penis or some shit like that. Hugh penis. Is there I suck a dick? I suck dick. Isaac dick. I mean, that's what I'm gonna end up doing if I start reading the comments. Let me see if I can pull up my comment thingy. I'm gonna wrap soon. My throat, that's what it is. My throat's dry. Let me just see if I can show these comments so they're a little clearer. There's a lot of people. Oh, there's a lot of comments. Damn you guys, you're making me feel like people are actually listening while I'm live. That's amazing. What I will say while I'm looking for this, do I have my little chat overlay? I thought I had an overlay one. It's ugly. Looks bad. Oof. I don't think, oh, that one's decent. all my platforms. I want you to subscribe to TikTok. I want you to subscribe to YouTube. I want you to comment on YouTube and say, hey, you suck or good job, and give it a like. Go to the YouTube live. I'm on lives. That's where all my videos are. They're on lives. I don't edit shit. Go to one of those lives and like it. That does a huge amount of things. If you go and like that, you don't even have to follow me. If you like the video, it will do something for me. I don't know if you can like something without being logged in. But if you like the video, you don't have to subscribe. That's something that says, hey, even if you hate me, but you really just get off on, self-immolation, I don't know, fucking like it. So whoever that is, I think that's you. I think that's YouTube. Yeah, that's YouTube. Good job. I got 3 comments on YouTube. Agoff, Twitler, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. All right. Let's just wrap a bow around it. So today I kind of touched randomly, a little bit incoherently, on the themes that are shaping the political landscape, and that is race, racism, lies, and hypocrisy from the GOP. Right now, they're living it. He's riding around with Laura Loomer. There's internal fighting with Marjorie Greene Taylor and Lindsey Graham. Laura Loomer calling out Lindsey Graham, saying he's gay. Of course, that's not going to land. That's not going to go over well. The fragmentation of that party is that Trump will keep going hard right the angrier he gets. And so it's funny that you may not have seen him if he was happy hanging out with Laura Loomer, but now he's in the place where he doesn't give a fuck and he wants to win. He's going to make it bloody. If he doesn't, he's going to make it bloody, exporting he's going to totally go on a rampage trying to get the minorities or the gangs out, which is going to be minorities to him. He's going to try the Muslim ban again. One thing he said that's scary as fuck is he said, all right, I'm going to deport them. If they come back, we'll execute them. He said that. He's like, all right, well, we'll give them one chance, but if they come back in the country, we're going to execute them. And if you buy into that, and then you also have in your bio God, country, and family, you can fuck off, and I probably will block you because it just doesn't make sense. Look, if someone came back, we ship them back out, or we say, you know what, you really want to get in here, there's a path to citizenship. It's not ours to keep. We were gifted this place where we have a lot of freedoms and probably one of the most experimental democracies, the newest democracies in the world. Historically, I guess. But to think that we're going to make it difficult for folks that are trying to find a better life, and not just fucking criminals are coming in this country, but Donald Trump's kind of fucked that for everybody. So we've got that internal fragmentation, of course, the abortion issue and the border. The border to me doesn't excite me. I could give a fuck what you say. I don't care. If you told me, oh, there's no fences and people are just walking across, I'd be like, okay. I really won't fucking care. I just won't care. And so you're like, well, it's because no, it's because what's it going to do? People walking across a border, it happens in Canada all the time. What's the difference? I'm not scared of brown people. I'm not at all. I don't think a majority of them are criminals. I'm not scared of the people coming over the southern border at all. But when you start talking about that, I know you are. And I know you don't have a problem with the open border on the north. If we had an open border in Canada, you wouldn't have a problem. Well, I might now because maybe they'll come around, and you probably got some weird ass argument in your head that you got to spin to get your cognitive bias going. But I am not scared of people south of the border. Just not. I don't give a fuck. And fuck, I speak Spanish enough that I'm fine. Come on in. I'd be happy if we were a bilingual country. Truthfully. Love it. Let's see. What to watch for. Let's see. I mean, I feel like Kamala Harris is doing a great job with her messaging. I feel like Donald Trump has gone doom and gloom. If you watch that debate, you can't ignore it. I mean, it's just a negative vision. Right now, the country's in total shit. It's hellscape. You got his minions repeating that the economy's horrible when it's not horrible, and inflation sucks, but we have lower inflation than other European countries, other Asian countries. And so it doesn't make sense to me that they're buying it, but it's because they repeat the lie. And again, tapping into fears of economic uncertainty is a winner too. It's a winner too. Let me see what else. So what do you think? Do you think the GOP's internal divisions are going to fragment them? Do you think that this image that Trump's concocting right now by being a weak man that adores strong men, that hangs out with white supremacists, do you think that's going to change the perception of Donald Trump? This was all stuff that happened the last time, which is why I went completely batshit crazy, because he was doing these things for all his life. It's not a change. He's not going to change. Again, duck, poop, shit, walk. It's a fucking duck. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're wise and smart like Agoff Twitler, fucker, you'll go to my YouTube and leave a comment, but I do prefer that you engage me on the page. If you send me a message, it's fine. I do appreciate it. And I love people sending me content and ideas. But we're actually having a great week right now. And I'll tell you that I'm probably pretty close to becoming a rising creator on Facebook right before I leave. So I want to thank everybody again for your support. It's been weird and fun. Folks that I know I argue and disagree with coming in, making comments. It's great. I love it. And I want the best for everybody. Truthfully, whether you're Republican or Democrat or MAGA or whatever, I would like the best for everybody. So this whole reason I do this is because I'm kind of inbred with this righteous indignation for fairness and injustice. I just can't get rid of it. It bothers people. I've always been that person to call shit out. Even when I was doing nefarious things, I actually had ethics and morals, believe it or not. We'll talk about that maybe on the subscription. We'll talk about my heyday in the underworld and why I believe that I was able to walk through it unscathed. But you know, I think that the reason I'm doing this whole thing, my intentions are true and just, and I don't necessarily want to belittle people. I want to crush their dumb ideas. I want to crush these ideas that aren't going to work for us. These ideas that haven't been vetted, these ideas that have no basis in reality. I want them out of there. And so when I see those ideas, I get so emotional and wrapped up that I have to, you know, my wife says I'm always having to try to force my point. Like when we get in an argument, it's like, I won't stop until we at least come to some agreement of what reality is. And I think that comes from my childhood trauma. But I know that that's how I kind of argue and debate. It makes it difficult because I kind of push and push and push until at least either they look ridiculous and you have to admit that I'm right, or you hate me and you never talk to me again, or you, in rare cases, you kind of concede and we both learn something. And even rarer cases, I'm proved wrong and I accept my wrongness. One thing I'm going to say, I'm going to walk down to I'm Wrong Valley. Okay. I stand on I told you so mountain. I got to come up with something when I'm wrong. And it's, I'm in the depths of the wrong death valley. I was wrong about one thing that I said the other day. I was way wrong. And I didn't know I was wrong. There's a lot of people that are wrong. But I suggested that a celebrity endorsement doesn't do much. It's not going to move the needle. And I was fucking way wrong, okay? I was so wrong because Taylor Swift, her fucking endorsement and her continued pushing for people to register to vote has, quadrupled, 10 times, some kind of crazy number, the amount of registrations, and it's not stopped. She just kind of pumped it up again yesterday at the VMAs. So I said it's not going to matter. I said people already made up their mind, but I'm not a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 20, whatever, young person that maybe I never voted. And I love Taylor Swift and her words and her meaning and everything she does. She talks to my teenage angst. And now she says to go vote for Kamala Harris and I'm going to go register. That's a real possibility, but it's happening. And holy shit, whether they're Republican or Democrat, who knows? I guess what the statistic is that 80% of the people that register to vote this close to the election will vote. And so I think she had like 300,000 or 400,000 new registrations, some crazy number. That means 80% of those people will vote, and maybe like 65% of them might vote along with her for the person she endorsed, maybe more. Who knows? But I said that it's not going to change the needle. And fuck, Taylor Swift, holy shit. I bow. You're the queen. You're the queen. You have proved me, and I'm going to publicly say I was wrong. That endorsement is a banger. Holy shit. Keep doing it. Please, every day, tweet, register to vote. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I don't know, but it's magical. I know if you're on the other side, you're like probably pissed. Like, oh, I saw all these memes today saying, don't let Taylor Swift influence your vote. And I know as soon as they say that, they're Republican. So why do you care? And so for them to say that, this is what made me look into the data of whether it was really making an impact. I made a real strong argument, in my opinion, that said, you know what, there's no needle moving because you're talking to your base. Celebrity endorsements don't do anything. But holy fuck, in the day of digital, with however many followers and Swifties she has, when the Queen speaks, people move, and it's being discussed on a national level as moving the needle. So down here in the valley where I'm wrong looking up, I apologize. I've been wrong, and I don't mind being wrong in that case. So Taylor Swift is a queen. Go Taylor Swift. In summary, we dove a little bit into the shit show right now that's the Republican Party. From Trump palling around with known white supremacists like Laura Loomer to Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to distance herself at her while throwing shade at, and Lindsey Graham acting like he's still got a shred of dignity. Hopefully you appreciated my my recap of the state of the world. I'll get a little better. I'm sorry I'm a little bit stuttery. I always shoot from the hip. I'm a little bit more fluid, but I think I didn't get enough sleep or didn't drink enough water. But we'll be back on Monday. If you guys watch the show, I have ideas about doing interviews, and I did a couple interviews for this after hours. I'm going to get back to that, but I've been struggling. I would love to have somebody that could counter me on this show, or at least be a sidekick or something. My Robin Quivers. I mean, I know I need a little bit more chutzpah or spicy meatball, whatever you want to call it, a little bit more glitter, a little bit more glam. Whether that be a male, female, I don't know. But I know these are things that people suggest to me that would help me get out of this kind of bubble I'm in of kind of seeing where I can go, but not quite getting there. And that makes me think people are bored with me, but I don't take it personally. I know that's the forum. I'm going to stick to my guns for a little bit more and continue to polish this. And there's a lot more things I can do to make this better. I'm going to hammer my team to come up with better content and fix the fucking teleprompter that made me stutter tonight. But I don't want you to get bored, and don't think that I'm going to fall off the cliff. I'm excited. And even after political season, when Kamala Harris wins, I plan on maybe things will settle down in my head, and perhaps that will be the time where we open things up. But I love suggestions, so do something like Agoff Twitler did. Fucker. Making me say that on air. And go follow me on YouTube or like it, and I'll see you on Monday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to say to everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for support. Please like and share this. One of the things that people don't do, and I can understand why, because they're long videos, is I don't get many shares from other people. I try to share amongst my accounts. It's ideal if you share things too, because I'm not paying anything. I've decided I'm not going to pay Facebook at all for anything. I'm not going to boost anything. I don't care. I have the ability to do political ads. I have the ability to push out political ads on Facebook. I went through the process. I'm good, but I'm really hesitant to put any money I know it works, but the amount of bot activity that I see, it just doesn't make sense. I'm spending so much time sifting through these accounts that might have 1 million followers, and then they have like 500 comments and 1,000 likes. I'm like, 1 million followers and you got 1,000 likes. That's not very good in my opinion. And then when you go through the comments, it's yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. Oh, cool. And you got 500 of them. To me, what the fuck is that? That's not real engagement. And so I know it's fake engagement. So I'm hesitant to give money to a platform that I really can't, makes it difficult to identify a real person and actual real engagement. I would bet that I've argued or gotten into pissing matches with bots, which I'm going to say it's embarrassing, but I'm sure there's a couple times where, there's probably some guy sitting behind a computer in a bot farm and watching my little feed, and I'm getting all tough and angry, and we're going back and forth, and it's a fucking AI. And I know that's happened to me before. And since when I recognize it happening, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to block the fuck out of anything that I think that's not real enough. And I do this due diligence. It takes a couple seconds. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want people fooling me. But I block without hesitation on something. If I think somebody has an agenda of manipulation or rage, I'll block. Or if I think, you know what, they started their account 4 months ago. Fuck you. Like I'm not doing 4 months. What'd you start 4 months ago? I don't need new friends. I want new followers. You heard it here first. I don't need new friends. I want followers. So do what I ask. Call to action. Go click on this button. This button for sharing it. This button for like. This button for sharing it. This button for like. If you're on YouTube, go over here and hit subscribe, and then go down here and click like. All right, just fucking do it. It doesn't cost you a fucking thing. But I'm just happy you're watching, so thank you. I'll see you Monday. I'm out. Let's see if we can get a good transition here.